Mr. Ṣẹ́gun, èmi ni kíní báyìí àbí?
Co-host.
Oh, co-host àbí? Okay, okay. Oh, no worry. How about the recording? Ṣé ọ̀dọ̀ yín lẹ ti máa tẹ̀ àbí?
Yes, it's I think it's automatically recorded.
Oh, okay, okay. No worry.
What's it close already?
So, come on, get you one way.
Good morning, sir. Professor, Prof.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, sir. We're happy to have you, sir. Just wanted
How are you? Good morning.
Okay, we just wanted to do a touch run before we start.
Right.
Now, all our other panelists are also here. Mr. Teslim, Sister B is there. Then Dr. Omishaki, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. I'm fine, sir.
Good morning,
Dr.
Prof.
Omishaki, wow, we are here. Oh, your abandoned people are here.
Prof, it's as if you are not joining us from Nigeria.
When you remember us in Ibadan, just come and say hello.
It looks like you are joining from the international office.
This is my office in UI. We are here. This is our address. And we haven't changed. How are you? How's everybody? Okay,
Well,
thank God.
Dr. Teslim, long time.
Dr. Teslim, how are you too?
Please, please unmute, sir. Mr. Teslim, please unmute.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's nice being on the call.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Are you sure that Prof is not joining us from one international event center like that? Because Prof looked very international. He was an international.
I've said this earlier.
I'm telling you.
This is my local office in UIO. We are here.
Okay.
In spite of all the shots,
we're trying.
all the shots that you guys are unleashing on us, we still survive. Yeah. Our friends like Shegu has abandoned us there. So just God that we are looking up to now.
Komishaki cannot abandon us. Well done, Prof.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Mr. Badejoko, you are welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Yes, good morning, everyone. Good morning, all. I guess it's 11 o'clock. Good morning, Mrs. Ojo. Good morning, man.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, man. We're happy to have you, man.
I don't want that to come in a meeting already.
Good morning, man. Thank you, man. Yes, good morning, everyone. And we are happy to welcome you to this webinar. This is Dawn Commission. Dawn Commission is the development agenda for Western Nigeria. And this is this webinar is tagged the development discourse. And the major purpose for this webinar is to discuss our recent report, economic report on Southwest, increased productivity, achieving increased productivity in Southwest Nigeria and Nigeria as a whole. And as a result of that, the Dawn Commission is a technocratic institution established by the 6 states government of Nigeria, and to midwife the economic integration of all the states in the Southwest Nigeria. And the economic desk, we go host a lot of things, we do a lot of programs, and one of them is to conduct regular research, which is aimed at enhancing the region's competitiveness. So some of the findings of research are often published in the Southwest Economic Journal. So we often facilitate knowledge sharing both between the state and non-state actors. So the October edition of this Dawn Commission Development Discourse, this offers this platform for both professionals, industry experts, and the public to engage in discussions around this the report. So we want to welcome every one of you, everybody on this call. And very soon, we shall be introducing our panelists. We have a lot of them from different walks of life who shall do justice to this. So this is a form of introduction, and we want to welcome every one of us to this meeting this morning. I believe that it's going to be an opportunity for all of us to discuss on the way forward and to deliberate on achieving long-term productivity in Nigeria, and to discuss some of the explore the effective strategy to foster this long-term productivity growth in Nigeria. So I want to welcome all of us to this call. My name is Adesoji Farayibi, and I'm going to be the moderator for this meeting. So, but before we, for this morning, while I'm doing a brief introduction of our panelists, before we call them later, this panelist morning, we have Professor Adeola Adenikiju, and he's the president of Nigeria Economic Society. I want to say you are welcome, sir. We also have Dr. Olusegun Omishakin, who is the chief economist of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, NESG. You are welcome this morning, sir. We have Dr. Teslim Shitabe, who is the chief economist and the managing editor, ProShare Nigeria Limited. We want to welcome you, sir. We also welcome Mrs. Olayinka Ojo, who is the director, Lagos State Economic Intelligence Department under Economic Budget and Planning of Lagos State. We want to say you are welcome, man. And we also have Dr. Afolabi Olowokere, who is the managing director and the chief economist, ADSR Research Limited, Ibadan. We want to say you are welcome. So we look forward to a very wonderful event this morning. So, but of course, before we start in earnest, I will want to introduce my Director General, Dr. Sheye Oyeleye, who is going to give us the welcome address before we proceed this morning. DG, sir, you're welcome.
Thank you, Soji Faraibi. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sheye Oyeleye at Dawn Commission here in Ibadan. Let me first of all thank you for joining in, and for our panelists, thank you for accepting the invitation to again deliberate on our journal that we sent out the other day, and particularly focusing on productivity in Southwest. The topic is very apt, and if you're talking of, as I told someone the other day, that we are, it was once said that may we live in interesting times. Nigeria is really living in interesting times. And several accusations, counter accusations, several suggestions have been put on the table on how to get this thing done. But, someone once said that Nigeria's challenges, economic challenges, are defying every known economic theory. And I tend to disagree. I said, if you apply the theory very well, it should have a positive effect on our economy. Yes, we are facing challenging times, but some have argued that it is not the economic theory itself, but indeed the way it's been implemented. I have argued again that we should, whatever we are implementing, there has to be an element of human face. But when we now talk about productivity, we are saying that there's no magic wand for the challenges we are facing if the economy is not productive. The other day, again, when I was out of being exasperated at the rising cost of living, I told some of my colleagues here in the office that I think that the government needs to now raise salaries again and put money directly in the hands of our people. And one of my colleagues said, Oga, it is not a matter of raising salary. are we that productive, even as a people? That are we productive as a nation? And productivity comes in several ramifications. So I think that it is a major issue. I mean, we all, and I'm not an economist, I'm talking as a layman. We all talk about, oh, our Naira. I mean, this morning I was reading Business Day that our currency alongside Lebanon and Ethiopia is the worst performing currencies in the world. And I said, well, I'm not sure that started a year ago. I think it's just a culmination of missteps or us as a country kicking the can down the road for several years and afraid of taking hard decisions. An economist on MSNBC the other day said, Mr. President, the current president, that he pities him. He said, leaders before him, they've kicked the can down the road for the next man. But unfortunately, that the present president now, he has now gotten to the end of the road, and there's no other road to kick the can to. So collectively, we're into this, and I think that it is easy for us to point accusing, and again, some of our economists do that now regularly. Some of us point accusing fingers at either IMF or World Bank. I think we are just hiding behind a small finger. Our challenges, we caused our problems ourselves, and we shouldn't blame World Bank or IMF for our woes, because it's fashionable to say, oh, we are implementing World Bank, we should ignore World Bank. World Bank did not give us this problem. So if we run to World Bank for cheap funds, yes, because their funds are cheap, then you must listen to their dictates. So on a final note, I think that I'm glad that Soji narrowed this down to the issue of how can we even achieve long-term productivity? Because if we do that, at least, maybe, just maybe, we can then start the process of growing our economy. But as long as our economy is not productive, I'm not sure there's any magic wand that will happen to our currency or to our revenue. So I look forward to listening and having an interactive session over the next 2.5 hours. Once again, on behalf of the Commission, I'd like to say thank you for accepting our invitation and look forward to happy discussion. Thank you, Soji.
Thank you, sir. DG, we appreciate. Thanks for the opening remark. Now, I'll just go straight to the context setting. Why are we here? Why are we here? Like I said, one of the reasons why we are here is to discuss on how to achieve long-term productivity in Southwest Nigeria. Like I said, not to preempt what the panelists should be discussing, but the major thing is that productivity growth in Nigeria has experienced a notable decline. And when we talk about this productivity growth, we look at it from the angle of labor productivity, which has to do with the partial productivity. How are people able to increase what's the output in terms of the labor in Nigeria? Then we also look at the other components of productivity, mainly which affects us, which has to do with the total factor productivity. We really talk about efficiency and how these the other factors are actually increased, how they're able to achieve good output. So this is really important. Now, as a nation, we know that achieving long-term productivity requires long-term productivity growth really requires a deliberate policy choice, which would need to stimulate every aspect of our economy. And one of the findings, one of the things we found out that in Nigeria, the labor productivity, the output growth in Nigeria has rather been a sort of factor reallocation. That is, labor moving from one sector to another, and not really that other sectors are growing. Then we also saw the impact of different reforms that government has done having effect on labor productivity and other productivity, both capital productivity. So we talk about the GDP paradox, whereby the GDP is also increasing, and we can see that there's a paradox whereby the other costs and other things are also increasing. So that's one of the reasons we took interest in this topic. So the reasons so that's why we look at this productivity growth to be the center of our report. So, but this morning we've already called the experts who shall be discussing this, particularly as relates to Southwest Nigeria and Nigeria at large, so that we look at how do we increase productivity growth in Nigeria, how do we enhance both labor productivity and total factor productivity. And like I said, we already have our panelists this morning, so without preempting them or going to or repeating issues to go into what we want to do, so I will call on Professor Adeola Adenikiju to begin the conversation. And let me say a little citation on Professor Adenikiju. Professor Adenikiju is the professor of economics from the University of Ibadan. He holds a PhD degree in economics from the University of Ibadan, and he's also a professor at the university. And he's a research professor at the Center for Econometrics and Annual Research, that's SEA. He also used to be the director at CP, that's Center for Petroleum, Energy, Economics, and Law, the MacArthur Foundation Regional Center of Excellence at University of Ibadan. He has been member of President Buhari's monetary policy body at the Central Bank, that's Monetary Policy Committee, for a period of 4 years. And currently, Professor is the president of the Nigerian Economic Society. So without much ado, I want to welcome Professor Adeola Adenikiju to give us the first comment as we begin this conversation. Prof, you are welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Soji. Good morning, DG, and good morning, fellow discussants and other people on this call. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I also want to thank you for the report that you sent. Well, before I go into my contributions, direct contributions, let me just quickly respond one or two things to what the DG said. Really, if you look at the shocks, the multiple shocks that Nigerians are going through, and you also take a look at some of the macro variables that we have, I think they are comparable to a country either at war or a fragile economy. So, I mean, that is the reality that we have. And two, with respect to wages and whether wages will drive inflation or not, in economics, there's also what they call efficient wage theory. If your wage is below, is very, very low, there has implications on entire things about your economy. It affects productivity that we're talking about. It drives corruption. It brings about all kinds of negative impacts. So, and that's why countries always find a way of adjusting minimum wage, to inflation and to other things, so that people's living standard, does not experience a catastrophic fall or decline. And the middle class is always very important for any economy. When you kill your middle class, then you're going to have an economy that at the end of the day, no matter what other variables are telling you, will be malnourished and will not really be strong enough to produce a sustainable development. So what we are doing now I see a lot of parallels with what happened at SAP and the African practice SAP, and it led to what we call a lost decade. So there's a way we have to balance all of this, in order to ensure that the benefits of reforms are, we can get the benefits of reforms, without necessarily, while mitigating the negative impacts of that. Another thing I just really want to mention is that when you have, let's say, a health crisis in an economy in a country, the first thing you see is that you have the economy, you have the doctors. One of the problems when we had the COVID, the doctors were called in to address those issues. Now we have economic policies, economic problems in Nigeria, and I don't say economists, even in government. The president just changed cabinets now. 7 ministers came in. There's no economists among them. So again, the way we treat some of our problems show that maybe we are not ready for the solutions. Yes, it's good that we have many people paraded as economists, but there are people who are trained as economists, okay, who understood, went through schools, went through the whole process, of obtaining PhDs, doing research, consulting for other countries and things like that, and yet we ignore them, So I mean, when you look, as the president of Nigerian Economic Society, will continue to raise this, that look, what we are doing is not optimal. You can't ignore that, and institutions around policy making. You don't just drive policies from, or outsource it, to some other people. You need your people and you need your best brains to be able to tackle the economic challenges that you have. So those are my preliminary comments response to what the DG said. Now, coming back to this report, again, I want to start by commending Dawn for, this is the first time, I'm sorry that I'm seeing your reports, and I'm impressed that you are doing this, really. And the theme of your report, productivity growth, is also very, very, very vital. It's very important. And, narrowing it down to the Southwest, I think it's also very good. Because we need to understand that what drives growth in economy, there are just 2 basic things, primarily. You have growth, you have your output on the left-hand side, you have your factors of production on the right-hand side, and and others, and then the growth in your left-hand side, which is your output, comes from 2 major factors, or combination of both of them. Either you are driving your factor inputs, your labor, your capital primarily, or you are getting efficiency, that comes from various sources, either your policies or technological advancements, improvement in efficiency and the rest of it. So growth basically comes from those 2 major sources, and narrowing on them to say, okay, that look, especially when you have economic shocks, and you are not, you cannot really expand on your capital, then you must find a way of, driving efficiency so that with the input you have, you can still be able to generate more output. That's where productivity growth comes in. And really, in my earlier careers, I've done a whole lot of work in this area, which have been published in, and even from consultations with UNIDO and rest of the World Bank. I've done some, and with colleagues who've done some work on the area of productivity. So it's a very, very important area. And again, with what the DG said, that, if you're productive, if you can't grow productivity in the long term, then it becomes very difficult to have a sustainable economic growth, to maintain economic growth. So we have been operating for a very long time, in the low equilibrium, low growth, low value added, constellations as a country. And that's why our productivity, our GDP growth remains very minuscule. I was somewhere, last week when I was speaking, that it will take 25 years at this current growth rate of 3.18 or 9 to be able to double our economy. Whereas between 1999 and 2007, we were growing at an average of 7.7%. That one will have taken us 9 years to double our economy. Okay, if you look at that period, we are growing factors, we also great efficiency. Okay, but now, you know, or whatever we are doing, you know, to take us, you know, several, you know, decades, you know, to be able to double this economy. And with the population growth that we have, it becomes even more, you know, more difficult to improve on the welfare of the people. So what you are doing is very good, and I want to commend you for that. And also narrowing on the states. Again, one of the things I did when I became the president of Nigerian Economic Society last year was to encourage the development of the establishment of state chapters. Now we have state chapters across the 36 states. And one of my arguments is that we don't have enough understanding of what's going on at the state level. You know, I mean, we have been University of Ibadan now. I'm a professor of 18 years at this university. I've been here since now, you know, as a lecturer since 1994. All we do is we teach about the national economy. You know, what happened at the federal government. Look at our curriculum. And when our students do projects, they do projects on, you know, at best, maybe they call the others, they just look at what happened in some section for your state and maybe UI. But generally, the focus is always what happens at the federal level. Who is understood? Who is studying the economies of the states? What do we know about what is happening in your state? Very limited knowledge. You know, and it's high time we started turning our attention to that, you know, that we start interrogating the states, you know, their budget, for instance. Oh, you know, we are quick to talk about the budget of the federal government. Who remembers the budget of your state last year? You know, the performance of that budget. You know, who is calling your state government or Osun State or Lagos State? Who is comparing the performance of the states? I mean, I'm not saying that Dawn, but even among academics and intellectuals at this level. And that's one area that I think, in my view, Dawn needs to relate with the academics and relate with the Nigerian Economic Society. Now, I look at the report, and I can see the weaknesses in this report, and I don't want to go into that. There are a lot of weaknesses in this report, which again shows that we have very weak linkage, you know, with those who could also support, you know, the quality of the report that we are presenting. I mean, like I said, some of us have worked here, but a lot of people have worked in this area over time. No study was cited, no trade analysis was done, you know, I mean, and things like that. That will be, you see, when you see World Bank, IMF, all of them, when they publish reports, go and look at the first two pages, those introductory pages. They will list the names of those people who have contributed to those reports. You know, they will tell you people in academia, people in this country, people in that area. So that begins to tell you that this report that our CEO has gone through a whole process of internal checks, and the quality of people that have contributed, is second to none. So little mistakes, there are a lot of things all over this place, this report that I think those kind of collaboration we have had, and that is what engagement with academics we have done. I want to encourage Dawn, and I pleaded with the DJ when we visited. What I told the late governor for your state, Chief Dr. Senator Ajimobi, when I had the privilege of visiting him during it, and I said, look, in your state, we have the oldest university in Nigeria, University of Ibadan. We have experts here, professionals, professors, renowned. I don't know how much of input they have in anything that your state is doing. How much of the consultant, how much of direct, indirect, official, unofficial consults that they have. So we totally ignore the academics. And I say it here, and I said it in my presidential address, no nation can grow beyond the level of our university. You're intellectual, you can't grow. It can't be done. Go and look at where we were in 1960, look at where we are now, look at the quality of universities in those countries in 1960. Now, the data, I'm sorry, the data shows in 1960, Nigeria's per capita income was twice that of China, was more than that of India. In 2023, Nigeria's per capita GDP was 7% of that of China. China has grown to be the second largest economy in the world now. And go and look at university in China. Go and look at Nature's ranking. Not the times. Go and look at Nature's ranking. Out of the 10 best universities in the world, China has 8 of them, the first 10. And if you look at all the STEMs, engineering, computer, all of these other things, the number 1 universities in the world are in China. They understood the investment that education can bring. Go to any, if you go to, I have some of my students and my children abroad now, go to their classes, master's classes in engineering. 9 out of 10 will be Indians. Because they understood that's where the future is going. Those are just what will drive the future of the world. It's the brain. It's not the so-called natural resource that we have, unless we want to remain hewers of wood forever. We continue to just supply wood and mineral resources to the world. We have to go beyond that. And your human capital, your education system, especially higher education, you can't ignore them. So I'm going to beg the DG and his team, let these governors and the people you deal with, let them interact with the academics. Let them work with the universities. Let evidence drive policies in this region. That was what Awolowo did. We read about a lot, the voice of wisdom, the voice of, you see, he was surrounded by intellectuals. There was a lot of evidence in policy. I don't see a lot of that. And that's why we are not, except because our location was, making some of this very good for us. And some of the states that are doing exceptionally well. Otherwise, the others are, you can say they are regress to the mean. They are not different from any other states. So I'm just going to say this, even if that's all that I can say, ladies and gentlemen, that, we can't grow beyond our, there must be investment in human capital, there must be investment in education. That was what set us apart in the 60s, and that's what we needed now. Once you have that intellectual base, it drives every other thing. I will then start seeing the benefits all over the place. Then I also want to mention that we also need a development plan, a long-term development plan. Again, like I said, I'm about to claim ignorance here. I don't know whether there's one for the region. If there is, excellent. But the question is, to what extent are state policies and programs and their budget linked to that medium to long-term plan? You see, one of the things that we lost during the SAP era was development plans. These guys came and said, look, market will do everything, you don't need to plan. And development planning was abandoned. Ladies and gentlemen, the development planning now has come back all over the world. 90 countries now in the last, currently have development plans. And some of the fastest growing economies have plans that govern how they grow. I've been fortunate to be part of, some of the development plans that we have in Nigeria in recent times. But I ask the question, how much of that plan, how much of our current policies are linked to the plan, is deriving anything from the plan? You can't, development is not a short term, it's not something you do short term. No, it's consistently doing something in a direction that will take you to development. You have to be patient, you have to be careful, you have to be deliberate. And in an environment, the economy says, where you have limited resource relative to your means, to your ends, then you have to allocate those resources most efficiently. And a weak government will produce a weak private sector. A weak government, a government that is not enabled, that is not itself strong, you always get a government, a private sector that is also weak. So we need a state that's enabled, a state that is linked to a development plan and strategy, okay, to serve as a direction and a signal to investment, to private sector, to donors, to everybody, that this is where we are going. And it's not just by word, your policies and your budget must also show that you are allocating resources to that place that you are going. So we need development plan. The last thing I will say, because of time, is that we must, again, I mean, like I will give you, I have a lot of comments on the paper. I don't want to be going, there are a lot of errors in that thing, but I don't want to go through that. Is that the Southwest must define, what are the sectors? We have to be deliberate now about the sectors we want to, we need to drive our development, okay? And we must find a way to ensure that we link up the rural and urban areas. Now you have all kinds of segmentation in the economy. You have between rural and urban, you have between formal and informal, you have all kinds of, you cannot grow if 70% of your population, of your economy is in the formal sector, 40 to 50% of your people are in rural areas, and they are not linked together. You cannot have sustainable growth. So we must start to find a way of bridging it. So where we link up the rural areas and we enable them. You give them, give them power, or let them have access to power, let them have access to modern energies, let them have roads that will link them up, to the food supply or to the demand centers and the rest of them. It is when you do that, and it's deliberate, and that's what the body development plan will do, that you can start driving up productivity growth. The labor becomes productive. You also be able to get efficiency, and you're able to drive up, per capita income. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the comments I want to make now. But like I said, I have I have a paper here that I will send it to the authors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Prof, thank you a lot for the wonderful for the insights provided on the report. And like you said, talking about to increase long-term productivity, you either increase the factor input or their efficiency, so that we can get a lot of productivity. And we also talk about having the focus on the subnational, really, so the budget analysis and other things that DON can also focus on. We spoke also on the long-term development plan, which is the new thing, the economic input that is being used to strengthen development across the world. And finally, talking about linking the rural and urban areas, and which are mainly and the formal sector. So, and of course, and some of the areas that say you pointed out from the report, we shall receive very soon. So we want to thank you, Prof. Thank you for your insight. And without wasting much time, I also want to call on Mrs. Olayinka Ojo for intervention. Ms. Olayinka is the director. Mrs. Olayinka Ojo is the director, Lagos Economic Intelligence Department. Is also under the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning. So she has a lot of experience, over 23 years in Lagos State Civil Service. So without much ado, let's welcome Mrs. Olayinka Ojo for talk this morning. You are welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Good morning, moderator. Good morning, sir. I want to specifically say good morning to someone I call my daddy and my mentor, the president of Nigeria Economic Society, whose mentorship on this side of drive also has support and help what we're talking about in Lagos in specific. And thank you, sir, for that very deep review of the document. So I will not be able to say that while I went through the document also, speaking from the public sector point of view, I didn't see so much of emphasis on the strategies that will drive the administrative arm of governance to ensure that this arm that serves as a tool for bridging or producing the productivity growth that we look forward to is well taken care of in terms of address. So Well, Prof has highlighted that when he was speaking about a growth driver and putting the factor input on one side, which will result into efficiency on the other side of output. The results chain matrix itself layers a lot of strength on human capital drive, as a great factor, a great driver of labor productivity growth. If you agree with me. And for us in Lagos, a lot of things Prof has spoken about has helped us to move to where we are now as a state. About 15 years ago, the Economic Intelligence Unit was created in the Economic Planning Department of the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budgets. This was as a result of the gap notice in terms of driving development with research, and the importance of research. At that very point in time, I was a much younger officer sent to serve in the units, and we established a lot of collaborative relationship. Part of the collaboration covers collaboration with research institutes and institutions. We have an MOU collaboration with University of Lagos research bodies, which has expanded over time. We have such relationship with the Nigeria Institute for Socio-Economic Research at Ibadan, NISA, and many other. We are also registered institutional member of the Nigeria Economic Society. In the recent time, coming back to the last 2-3 years, when I particularly have been sent back to head the Economic Intelligence, which is now a full-fledged department, we have collaborated strongly with economists in Lagos and around Lagos. Professor Adeola Adenikiju, also our president, could also attest to the fact that we have annual gatherings where we bring economists together from every sector, both the institute and institution, private consultants, analysts in economic column pages, medias, to see how they help to enrich the kind of outputs that we have in Lagos State government. So I would like to layer this to a particular portfolio, because I don't want to go through all the sector. But one sector where Lagos State reforms has invested greatly in human capital and development, and has resulted significantly in labor productivity and growth is technology. About 20 years ago, because Prof was talking about a long-time, deliberate, consistent investments, in strategic sector, that's where you must have seen opportunity, and that development doesn't just happen. It takes consistent efforts, of people who have defined their development plan, who has linked it to policies and probably to key outcomes, and have drivers, have things they are looking out to as indices for measurements, and consistently doing that deliberately with all intentionality over a long period of time, can now begin to talk about impact, significant growth results, efficiency that makes you to say, okay, you can now see this productivity growth, in this area. One of such area in Lagos, for instance, is investment of our government in technology and human capital development. About 20 years ago, when the current president of Nigeria was the governor of Lagos State, he significantly see the need for translating development with the story of improving technology. And so technology becomes key to Lagos State. It was introduced that in every, some people were taken out to train. He brought in consultants to train civil servants in a period of about 9 months. Then after that, a major significant strategy of deploying computer scientists who have been trained to each ministry, department, and agency to create what we call ICT room, in each of these agencies, where as a civil servant, you have 1 hour a day you can go to train yourself in Microsoft development. Before that time, we produce in Nigeria graduates who have seen computer, or maybe who have not seen computer, who have seen computer but have not been privileged to even hone computer in the universities where they graduated. It's possible that you don't have more than 1 box of this television computer thing that existed then. But this was a government that recognized that gap and deliberately decided to invest in its people, and so 1 hour a day you can go learn in that ICT center, which is within your ministry, and we begin to develop our capacity. Somebody like me who graduated from University of Ilorin in mathematics, seated with computer department in the same building, but never had opportunity to hone computer before I graduated with BSc in mathematics. It was there that all this knowledge begins to come up. But what I can tell you today is that that has not limited my capacity to do research, do policy brief that inform governance, that drive sector growth. I've not only improved in that, I've also expanded that knowledge to AI, and because I have that basic capacity, the campus is also infrastructurally equipped with technology to drive the human capital that is on ground. And this is like 20-something years after. The impact of that is that we have almost 98% face-off typists, the regular typists you can still find in other states. From Lagos State, hardly can you find a Lagos State public servant or middle level upward who cannot use computer by themselves. I am a director. I don't have a secretary. I'm the secretary of myself and everything. So it makes my research work fast. It makes my output fast, more quicker, and I get results on time. Lagos State government has development plan. I think since I came to government, this is about the 2nd plan that we're running. I was part of the zero draft of the 1st plan. I was fully part of the draft and production of the current 2052 plan, a 30-year plan, which has about 400 and something initiative, bucket into 4 dimensions. It's online, you can see it. We recently produced the first subnational level economic development updates. Prof was agitating for who is measuring development updates of states in the Southwest. Well, we have one, it's online, you can access it. We are already engaging with our stakeholder in the production of the next edition for 2025. The 2024 edition, the most current, is online, which shows what sector is driving our GDP growth as a state, what strategies could be put in place more to get better results. This is not produced by any consultant handed over to us. It's produced by our own staff who has capacity by reason of government investments. And my discussion with Dawn Commission when you visited was that you can use Lagos to scale. I'm not saying we've gotten to the best of it. We are also aspiring to emerge, in the region. But we're looking at how we scale ourselves to compete with global peer who are already doing about 9% contribution in terms of tech startup to their GDP. But a government that will drive tech startup is a government whose administrative arm, the public servant itself, is well equipped in technology and has the knowledge it takes by reason of investment in capacity building. So I said to Dawn Commission when you visited that one of the things you could do quickly to see this productivity emerge in the Southwest is to first strengthen the public servants by reforms of strategies, by the capability to bridge the level of research. Because if research is coming from the institutions and the interpretation for the arm that is going to deliver it to the general populace is weak, like Prof has also highlighted in his review, honestly, we go nowhere. So I want to minimize, but then, well, before I conclude, I would like to state that this deliberate investment by Lagos State government over the years, has brought this level of what do I say, this level of credibility that we see today in terms of the kind of staff strength and in terms of the capacity of the Lagos civil service itself. So we're talking about, that's why you see our government not taking technology for lightly, because we know that it's going to translate a lot of things. The world is emerging itself, the evolving strategies all over the place, the evolving change all over the globe. You cannot keep a regimental administrator arm that will translate governance policies to action, you know, or without the knowing, without the knowledge, and think that you'll be able to scale anything. So there is need for peer review mechanism, peer learning, you know, which Dawn can do to strengthen the Southwest arm back to the old glory of what we used to be known for as a region. In terms of investments in the administrative arm, investment in the public service arm. There is a general decadence in terms of the graduate that is being produced in Nigeria now. So if there is a way you could remedy that to bring the kind of people that comes to governance and translate these things. Otherwise, no matter how vibrant our private sector had to drive growth, if the arm that is going to do the coordination, the translation, the enforcement, the conveyance of the knowledge, the policy is weak, then we might not be able to go so far in terms of productivity. I would like to hang it there, but I would like to state again clearly that if you visit our website, you see a lot of our publication. Particularly, I'm introducing us this morning on this platform to the Lagos State Economic Development Update, LEDU 2024, which is on the website of Lagos State. It will show you the developments reports, like Prof said, the economic report of Lagos State, specific and driven by the data from the Lagos Bureau of Statistics, our Lagos specific data, not as other measures, but as we measure by the reasons of the data that is from our own sectors across the states. Thank you very much. For now, I would like to stop.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ojo. And like you rightly said, we've heard her from the public sector perspective, and she are really giving us basically the strategic approach which Lagos State has been using to be able to, you know, achieve what the current state. And like she said, Dawn Commission visited Lagos State Economic Intelligence Unit department very, I think about last month, and even I think it's, this month. And we really spoke a lot about how to move ahead, particularly in getting this Lagos State development update to scale it to our other states. And we appreciate you. Also, we also thank you for the insight you provided on Lagos State efforts, and I play much premium on technology, and we can see that it's what we saw over there when we came. I believe to be able to strengthen the public service, we are going to coordinate and enforce other government reforms. So these are very key, and we believe that very soon we do a lot of peer review and peer learning, so that we can also be able to, you know, scale up our other states in the region to be able to come up, and also to showcase, you know, peer learning, to see what level of things have, what works in what state, what works in other states, so that we can, as a Dawn Commission, which to look at the composite development framework for everybody to coordinate this development, be able to bring to bear how this can be done. So I want to thank you very much for that, your insight, and we shall come back very soon during the question and answer. And without further ado, I want to go to the next speaker. I want to go to the next speaker, who is Dr. Olusegun Omishakin. Is the seasoned chief economics and economic strategist, the chief economics as the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, and he's a transformative leader, he's a authentic leader, and have been driving positive change on the platform of NESG, that's Nigerian Economic Summit Group. And recently, they just concluded the 30-year Economic Summit conference, which was held. So without further ado, I want to welcome Dr. Olusegun Misaki to give his talk. Dr. Misaki, you're welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this discussion. Firstly, let me thank the DG and every member of the panel and every participant today. I think I'm not going to take much of our time. I feel like just taking notes as we've had a very interesting perspectives and discussions around the regional western part of Nigeria, the regional development strategy. And I think this goes beyond just our usual or general analysis. Firstly, those that you see along the federal or the national line. And I think that the Professor started this panel discussion in a very, very technical, but for me, on an emotional level, which I think it's the truth that we all must also be very ready to listen to, and also the activities of Lagos State in this space, as we've listened to Joe, very, very, very interesting one. So my point is for me to first kind of tell the commission to say, beyond, we have everything is about platform. If you look at the whole country, we have different platforms, big platforms, economic platforms that that are centered on looking at the issue of the national issues, macro stability, and so many other development narratives. But we don't have many platforms that are considering state level or regional level development. We don't have platforms that are like, the knowledge-driven platforms, just like Prof said. And I think that the commission can take up this challenge. I know the commission has been, been very active in this space, but I think there is a need for the commission to look at the current contributions and current situation in the country as the opportunity to strengthen their platform. I think the commission can go beyond just, just being there into one of the major economic or regional platforms in Africa. There is no way we can discuss growth along regions, along states that will not look at the knowledge environment of and the platform that is driving it. Nothing can grow when we don't have platforms. We have different ones that different countries are creating in one way or the other. It's all about the game of platform, because most of these platforms are driven by knowledge. They gather people together. You've seen the World Economic Forums, you've seen different global ones. I think the commission can scale up also, in making sure that we have a more attractive, knowledge-driven, interesting platform on the scale of all the states in the western part of the country to discuss development agenda. And this will be very, very interesting. I mean, if you remove Lagos from the western part, the story will be abysmal. We love to just parade Lagos and had Lagos with every other state to say, oh, we contribute about 25 or 30% GDP to the country. But if you remove Lagos from this picture, we can't say anything, and this shouldn't be. So for me, I think it's a challenge for every one of us, but I think it's a challenge that the commission can take up to provide platform where people can come together, and discuss issues like this. And so let me quickly talk about my view also about the core thesis of the report. I think that first of all, the way we've conceptualized productivity looks limited. when we look at it from just the human part or labor dimension. Productivity for me, economic productivity for me is purely capital efficiency. Capital from both the financial, both the human capital, the physical ones and the technological ones. So if you look at the financial part of the capital, the question we want to ask ourselves is that what size can we have an idea of the budget size of all the states together? Or let me say, remove Lagos, can we have an idea of the budget size, the high GR, the investment capability or capacity of these states, and then compare that to the need or the gap for production or productivity that we have? It will be obvious that there is no way we can develop, there is no way we can grow, there is no way we can improve our productivity if we continue at this level at which states, leaders are depending on the federal allocation. And I think this has some, of course, political or constitutional considerations. But these are the big issues that we need to be pushing, and we should be pushing now. There is no way, the current structure will literally make sure that there is no way any state, except those states that have gotten it right for long, any state, there's no way any state can really come out to be attractive to the, to foreign investment. Let's go to my state, Osun State. So the question is, how do we bring in huge discussion about productivity into such an economic system? You look at it from the part of the human capital development. Are people well educated? Are there enough skills to transform the economy? Do we have infrastructure on ground? Do we have the energy supply? What is the state of the technology or the innovation? Or so many issues are there that will make this conversation to just be without any impact or effect. So I think the starting point is for us to understand the baseline, the current situation of the Western states. So and that's the first point I want to talk to. Yes, of course, I know that the issue of resource allocation and federal dependency also has a lot of political undertone, but we can't talk about productivity along states when we don't talk about the resource allocation. We cannot be productive when we already have the bailouts. No family can go out and work when they know already that the government will pay them at the end of the month. No state is going to stand up and say, let's develop our agric sector, let's send people to school, let's improve this, when they know that at the end of the month, the federal allocation is coming. And you know how we also parade our FAC allocation annually, where we discuss about, it has improved now because of the removal of subsidy. Now state governors or state, government can get this and this and that. That is where I think we also need to be looking into both the political and the economic part of it. Even if we develop economic planning or economic plans, the point is, how do we drive it? When you look at the whole nation itself, for me, it's something we can see that the whole country is poor. Combined all our budget together with tax, everything together, it is so poor to drive any meaningful growth or development. So I think the conversation should take it very seriously, aspect of resource control or resource allocation. And that's the first point. The last point I also want to make talks to, when we look at the productivity, we need to be clear as to whether we're looking at it as intra-regional or inter-regional problem. If we look at it in isolated manner to say, okay, how can Osun State be productive? How can Ekiti or your state and Lagos State be productive individual? I think that conversation may not be meaningful on the long run if you don't look at the connections among all these states. As you can see, we've not seen a very interesting or significant manifestation of these linkages or feedbacks among states. We are seeing a little bit the connection between Lagos and Ogun State. Yes, very clear. But you can't see such or your state and Osun State. Everything seems to be disconnected. And so there is no way we can have a meaningful growth agenda or productivity agenda without looking at the benefits, and the feedbacks that we can get, the economies of scale that we can get from this stage. So my final point is to say the Dawn Commission should scale the current position or the advocacy level to a level where we have a bigger platform where the commission can lead this kind of conversation in the country, where the governors, the administrative part of the governance, the economists, and everyone, the policymakers, everyone come together to see how this push can be done. But for me, I think this is a starting point. I will expect more reports or analysis, evidence that will be, pushing out to kind of strengthen this conversation. But I think we need to do far more than this to make it a center point for the western part of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, Dr. Omisaki, and that's your beautiful thoughts on the report. And like you rightly said, talking about a platform, creating this conversation as a regional platform, as the little Power City, the very few platform that focus on the regional issues and subnational issues. And like I can tell you categorically that that's what Dawn Commission has been doing. And of course, you said we also intend to scale up to be able to also drive this conversation beyond the current platform. They also like what to talk about your main interest on capital efficiency, which is really the major thing, doing the budget analysis and investment capacity analysis, so that when you look at this gap, we'll be able to look at the production gaps. And this is very, very good. And I know that the Dawn Commission also used to provide, present that budget analysis. I know that based on SIFTA's our state provide a budget report very well. So we have been able to also come up with a budget performance report by doing a cross-section analysis and making a comparative analysis of these states. So we shall also beam the sharp light on that conversation so that it can become more visible for people. Then we also talk about resource control, productivity, whether we're going to talk about it in terms of intra and inter-regional problems, and talking about the Dawn Commission, taking the advocacy to a more higher level so that we can engage the nation as a whole. So I really want to appreciate you a lot for this. We shall also look into that and some of these recommendations later. But without much ado, I also want to invite our another panelist who is Mr. Teslim Shitabe. Mr. Teslim Shitabe is the chief economist and the managing editor at ProShare. One thing that is very evident with Mr. Shitabe is that he's passionate and knowledgeable about regional issues, both from the private sector perspective, and is really passionate about driving this conversation. So without much ado, I want to welcome you, sir, Mr. Teslim, for your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being on this platform. I must say that Dr. Adenikiju set the tone brilliantly. He actually took most of what I would have wanted to say from my mouth, and that shows that there is a general consensus and meeting of minds amongst people who analyze the Southwest region. Mrs. Ojo, I'm very pleased to have heard some of the things you have said. And of course, Dr. Omisaki had also said some things that I agree with totally. And I agree with him in one key area, which I wanted to quickly point out, that productivity isn't just about the labor issue. It goes beyond labor. It goes to actually analyzing the total factors of production and us assessing how they interrelate in a manner that improves economic output, value creation. That's what I would use, value creation. We need to be able to pull all the factors of production together and create value. For instance, I've heard very often that, okay, you know what? Everybody has to go to the farm. Everybody has to farm. And we have to go back to agriculture. True enough, we need to improve agriculture. But is it about increasing the number of human beings on the farms or improving the technological applications on the farms to improve output per hectare of farmland? This is important. Why I'm saying this is important is that 3% of the total American population is involved in the agricultural sector. However, they feed America and also export to the rest of the world. So what it tells us is not just about throwing labor at agriculture or throwing labor at any fixed factor of production. It's about us looking at the total productive efficiency of all the factors that go into the production process. Now, in saying that, I also want to say something here about productivity. The report was a brilliant report. I must say that. I want to commend the Dawn Commission for producing the report. But I however agree essentially with Professor Akiniju concerning certain gaps that are in the report. Now, one of the things I want to say is this. Productivity, the concept of productivity goes beyond the question of input and output. That we're saying productivity is the ability to use existing quantities of inputs to produce greater outputs. That was old school. That was the old reality during the industrial age. We're living in a whole new age. We need knowledge that is fit for market. Now, what am I saying here basically is that productivity goes beyond just outputs. It goes to the point of being able to use technology for the advancement of value. We need to create value. And let me give you a clear example here. One of the fastest growing segments of the Nigerian environment or the Nigerian economy is the service sector. Now, in that service sector, one of the fastest growing segments of that service sector is entertainment. So we have the Wizkids, we have the Davidos, we have the Ira Stars, we have the Thames, we have Rema. They're producing massive amounts of revenue. How do we assess that? How do we capture that? Most of that money stays in Delaware, in the United States of America. It doesn't come back to Nigeria. It doesn't add value in the Nigerian process. But they have created value. So what I'm saying here is that what have they created? How did it come about? Can we codify it, replicate it, and use it to generate value for a general Nigerian economy? That needs to be addressed. And that's why I say it's not just about labor. I think Professor Akiniju, he sort of segued towards that when he was talking about the issues of China and where Nigeria was in 1960s, early 1970s. And I'm even bringing the question to even 25 to 30 years ago. Nigeria, India, and China were virtually at the same level. If you look at the extent of the values of export of goods and services, if you look at how much we created value in terms of capital market valuation, 30 years ago, we were all at the same level. However, something shifted, something changed. What was it? It was the appreciation in China, it was the appreciation of Zhao Ziyang, the premier at the time, that human capital is the key. We need to improve human capital, not just labor, but the value creation that labor brings. And so what did China do? I urge all of us to read a book by Professor Yan Ang. She called it How China Escaped the Poverty Trap. In that book, she explains very clearly that it's not so much that there was any magic. It was simply for the fact that the Chinese realized that the value of the average human being needs to improve, and that improvement in the value of the human being will create the values that you want in the broad society. So you saw China sponsoring so many of its citizens to study in the West. So you saw Chinese students all over the world. You saw them in the United Kingdom, you saw them in the United States of America. What did that do? That improved the quality of human capital. That human capital improvement translated into improvement in domestic productivity. Because they came back to China, took the experience and knowledge they had from the Western world and started manufacturing. And beyond manufacturing, they created the knowledge age. They went into knowledge farming. I'll give you an example. Most often, if you look at the World Bank, for instance, today, most of the top executives are Indians. IMF, Gopinath, she's an Indian. United States of America, Kamala Harris has Indian roots. The United Kingdom, the immediate past prime minister, had Indian roots. What it does tell you is that the human being and its development is crucial to how fast a government or a region or a state or any other entity will grow. And therefore, in my opinion and that of Proshare, we need to adopt the reasoning of Albert Einstein. And that is that you cannot solve a problem at the same level of thinking that created it in the first place. If we're going to solve the problem of regional development in the Southwest, we've got to change our thinking. We can no longer think the old way. We need to think the new way. We need to think in a manner that we improve human capacity, which is exactly what Professor was talking about when he said that there's need for further collaboration between the public sector and academia. Academia is vital to progress of the Southwest Nigeria. Professor also mentioned Chief Obafemi Awolowo, and it was a slight reference to the fact that there was a free educational program at that time. Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the smart man that he was not doing free education because he felt that he's a charity organization or that he's so-called socialist. No. The free education of the West was paying it forward. What do I mean by that? Now, if I develop a man and he stops at elementary school, and I develop a man and he goes to tertiary institution, in 10 years, the kind of revenue streams that are generated by these two individuals will be completely different. The primary school graduate will definitely grow, but his capacity to earn will be significantly lower than the capacity to earn of a person that graduates from a tertiary institution. So what did the Southwest do then? They paid it forward. They invested in human capital today to generate the stream of cash flows needed tomorrow. And that's something I think the Southwest has to go back to. We've got to go back to understand that education is crucial to the development of the Southwest. And we saw that in the early 60s, late 60s, and even the early 70s, where we had Southwestern people, people of Southwestern extraction being engineers, lawyers, accountants, architects. So check most of the professional bodies today. You're going to see people of Southwestern extraction in the management, either in the leadership or around the leadership of these institutions, accounting, engineering, banking and finance, all these areas, they are products of long-term investment in human capital development. And I think we've been a bit tardy in the Southwest concerning our educational system. Mrs. Ojo referenced the poor quality of graduates that are coming out. Although there's a question mark on that, because I do know a number of very brilliant people who I work with in Proshare, who are graduates within the current system. And 6 of them are actually graduates of the University of Ibadan. Professor, I would like to thank you very much for training these my colleagues. I think it's the way to go. My work with them has shown the capacity and the capability of the Nigerian who thinks. Akon very recently said that some of the smartest people on the planet that he knows are Nigerians. When I was in Washington, D.C., I got into a cab and the man asked me, he said, "Where do you come from?" I said, "Nigeria." He said, "Oh, Nigeria, brain. And I was like, what in heaven's name was he talking about? Then he explained to me that the Ethiopian community in Washington have insisted that they will only be treated by Nigerian medical doctors. And that caregivers, they will only be treated by Nigerian caregivers, in other words, nurses. Why? Because of the quality of human capital, because of the quality of medical doctors we produce, because of the quality of nurses we produce. This is at the heart of the Southwest Nigerian development agenda, improving the quality of thought, including the forward thinking that we are known for, including the deep thinking that we are known for. And therefore, I want to thank Professor Akiniju for raising this point, because it is very critical. And at Proshare, we have pushed this plate severally on different fora that we've got to improve human capital development. That is at the heart of our development in the region. Now, having said that, I'd also like to point out to the point to something that I think it was Dr. Omishaki that sort of mentioned it in passing: cooperation and collaboration amongst the states. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. That's the summary of it. The pace is not as important as the destination that we want to get to. Darren Hardy wrote a very brilliant book, The Compound Effect. He explains in that book that those small steps you think you are taking today are actually the catalyst for the massive developments of tomorrow. And we've seen that in China. The Zhaoxiang China started gradually to improve the quality of human capital. Today, China is where it is and Nigeria is where it is. 30 years after, the two nations are on totally different trajectories. Because we did not stay the course. We did not show consistency. We did not show commitment. And we did not show cleverness. Now, in having said that, I also want to say that it is important that Lagos State has done a great amount of things. And I'm proud to be a Lagosian myself. So I'm really happy about that. But it's not just about Lagos. It goes beyond Lagos. How does these developments in Lagos, how are they shared across the Southwest region? Like I think Mrs. Ojo was the one that mentioned it, peer review and lessons shared. It's not enough for me. The Yorubas have this saying that a man who thinks he's rich and comes from an environment of abject poverty is poor. You cannot claim to be rich. You cannot claim to actually be doing well when everyone around you is not. So here, Lagos State has a 38 trillion naira GDP. Brilliant. If I'm going to look at the report and what it said, I think Lagos State is about 20 million to 22 million people, but the report says as at 2022, Lagos State is 16 million people. Fair enough. Just take it at 16 million people. But Lagos State is 3,400 square kilometers of land. So when we talk about agricultural development, how does Lagos State achieve that? How does Lagos State feed these 16 million people? The best way for it to do it is to collaborate, to cooperate, and to coordinate with other states. I think Ogun State has about 16,000 kilometers of land, which obviously suggests that it has a capacity to produce a lot of food or agricultural products. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the people have to be the ones producing it. We can use technology to advance agricultural development. But Lagos State can take advantage of that and feed this population that is not involved in the agricultural sector, but produces services. These are services that can generate. I talked about the entertainment sector. I'm talking about the banking and finance sector. These are areas that Lagos State also can make a contribution, provide very good quality in these areas. And as it generates its income, this money will be spent in states like Ogun State, Oyo State, Osun State. What I see as lacking currently is what I call an input-output turnstile matrix. What does that mean? What output does Lagos State generate that serves as an input into an economic activity of Ogun and Oyo State? What output of Ogun and Oyo, Osun, Ekiti State produces inputs for activities in Lagos State? There's a failure of integration. I think it's Dr. Mishaki who mentioned this. And I and ProShare, my team at ProShare, believe that there is a need to address this issue critically. We've got to find how we can integrate our economies. If we do a rail line in Lagos, we shouldn't clap. The Lagos rail line, how does it feed into the value chain of exporting goods and services from the hinterland in Osun, Oyo, Ekiti, Ondo? Ondo State has massive arable land, produces fruits, but does not produce concentrate. I read the report. We talked about Ekiti State and made reference to agriculture. No, it's not agriculture. I read the report and I saw that there was an inland cargo handling runway there. No, that's not what Ekiti should be doing. In other words, I'm challenging the Dawn Commission to take a critical look at the state economies and the input-output matrix for the region that will ensure that one state's input is another state's output and one state's output is another state's input, so that it's a rising ocean that lifts all boats. Dr. Mishaki rightly pointed out, we talk about Southwest and we look at the performance of Lagos and we seem to aggregate everything. This problem is not only in Nigeria. It happened in Europe, where Greece, for instance, had the credit rating of Germany because it was a member of the EU. But we also saw what happened in the Greece crisis. We need to be very objective. We need to be very critical with ourselves. We need to tell ourselves the truth. When this I consider to be a family meeting, where we'll tell ourselves the truth, we may go out angry, but we would have benefited from the value that we get from telling ourselves that truth. Just like Professor Akiniju rightly pointed out, we're not harnessing all the resources available within the Southwest to make the Southwest a shining star that it was in the 60s. We're not making the Southwest a shining star. The first television station in Africa, Southwest. Cocoa House, Southwest. Massive export of cocoa production, Southwest. Oil palm, Southwest. Now we have Malaysia and Indonesia overtaking us in a lot of products. Even as a matter of fact, funny enough, we have China producing cocoa and exporting it to the UK. What happened to us? So from my point of view, and that of my colleagues in ProShare, there is a need for a mindset shift. And for us, that is the ultimate productivity, where we take our minds and shift it towards a greater objective, that of improving the value creation in the whole region. Without us taking this thing seriously, and I think a suggestion made by, I think it was Dr. Mishaki, is very crucial. The Dawn Commission needs to do this peer review and also needs to create a platform for continuous conversation about what is happening in the sub-region, in the Southwest region of Nigeria. For instance, why doesn't the Southwest of Nigeria have a Southwest Sovereign Investment Authority? Why doesn't each state in the Southwest put monies aside for the purposes of collaborating with the private sector to invest in private sector-led but public sector-supported economic agendas? Let me just give you a simple example of what I'm talking about here, and I'll try to round up as quickly as possible. In Ogun State, we have Iwope paper mill. That paper mill has never operated for a single day. The J5 forest in Ogun State was actually reserved and created to provide raw materials for Iwope paper mill. Iwope paper mill has 50 abandoned houses within its premises. It has a power plant. It has a jet. And in the last over 2 decades, nothing has happened there. Absolutely nothing. Admittedly, you could say that, oh, you know what, it's because it's the federal government. No, that's not good enough. Why can't we decide to assess all idle projects in the Southwest of Nigeria and have a concerted plan towards taking over these projects, collaborating with the private sector, and then creating value by listing these projects on the capital market? Why can't we financialize idle public projects in the Southwest? And we can get that done also supported by a Southwest Sovereign Investment Authority. Like I said, these are my early thoughts. I don't want to take too much of our time, but I believe very strongly the Southwest has the intellectual firepower to move the region forward. I believe the Southwest has enough arable land to move the region forward. I believe that the Southwest has a passion, a privilege, the duty of posterity to drive a much more advanced and forward-thinking sub-regional growth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ashitabe. You can see that spoke passionately about this issue, and this just today, that has been him. And every time we meet, every time he engages us, that's how he speaks. I know he was around during our economic outlook in January, and also spoke passionately. Of course, some of the things he has rightly pointed out, there are consensus in some of the perspectives about the report and some of the areas that needs to some of the recommendations in terms of cooperation and collaboration, in terms of fostering a formidable platform whereby we engage the subnational and regional issues in terms of emphasis on human capital development. He gave a example, an instance of China and what it did by sending people abroad. So to be able to learn, and the effect of this is shown in the economy of China. And of course, there are a lot of things to be done in terms of collaboration and cooperation among the states, so that when we also conduct the input-output analysis, be able to actually know how the economy can actually be coordinated and linked to each other. You can establish that linkage so that we can have a composite economic development in the region. Thank you so much for your thoughts, and we want to appreciate you. So I guess the next item is the interactive session for everybody, and for people that have a talk. Beyond the report, how do we achieve long-term productivity growth in Southwest Nigeria? We've listened to a lot of the panelists, their initial thoughts. So how do we achieve long-term productivity growth in the region? You can share your thoughts. The time for people to talk. And just while we are waiting for response, you can use the chat maybe to raise your hand, and you can use the comments section to also talk or to ask your question or to make your comment. Like, I want to read the comment of Mr. Femi Akarakiri, and he said, for Nigeria, we need to deploy both more human capital and more tech for agricultural productivity. You have a very large population of unemployed and unskilled people who could rapidly pick up agricultural skills. So these are his thoughts, and I want to welcome discussion from if you have any state representative, you can also go ahead and speak right now. But while we are waiting, I don't know if the Director General, Dr. Seyi, has any feedback to give in this. Please, you can signify this time for interactive session. You can share your thoughts on how to achieve long-term productivity growth in Southwest Nigeria. And if the panelists also have other rejoinder, they can also talk at this time. Just interactive session while we are waiting for the question.
Not at the moment, Soji.
Oh, okay. No problem, sir. We'll wait for other interactions before. Okay, yes. I want to please, Mr. Femi, please, can you unmute your mic?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Please, you can go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate the contributions of all the panelists. I think they've done justice to the conversation. I just wanted to bring to the fore for conversation as well the fact that productivity, especially in Southwest Nigeria, is being limited by macroeconomic factors. I think that, yes, we've looked at some of the more granular, pretty much operational, I would call them, factors, but there are macroeconomic challenges that are limiting productivity. And I think that Dawn Commission as a platform, and super excited to have listened to Prof and his contributions on the need for inclusion of experts, economic experts at the national level. The reality is that, yes, there is a lot of work that can be done at the sub-national level and at the regional level. But regardless, if the interest rate on loans is over 40%, there would be no productivity. If the inflation level, of course, which drives that interest rate, is not being curtailed, then there will be no productivity. If your currency is not stable and there's no indication that it will be stable in the next few months or few quarters, then there'll be no productivity. So think about it. An investor based in the US wants to bring in his capital to Nigeria to come and start a high-tech agricultural project or whatever, an energy project. He's going to look at the stability of the exchange rate. He's going to look at what's going to be his payback and what will be the impact of this consistent devaluation of your currency when he converts his money into the local currency. So if he's bringing in technology and all the things that can help you to achieve, efficiency and to help you to improve and to maximize the utilization of your factors, but he cannot, take out his cash effectively or profitably, then there is a problem. So I think that it's necessary for us to engage not only at the local level, and I think that engagement at the local level is super important. There's a lot of projects that should be running now, but we need to drive some stability at that macro level. Because right now, I mean, we can do all the theory we want and, speculate. The reality is when it comes to the numbers, real investors will look at the numbers and say, is this thing in my best interest? So how do we secure capital locally at a decent rate that can allow for investors to be able to invest in the real sector? I'm not talking about FPI and all of this kind of fickle investors. I'm talking of real investors who want to put their boots on the ground and get stuff done locally. How do we, make sure that that works? Then how do we ensure that, we stop benchmarking against, mediocre states, right? In my opinion, Nigeria should be targeting, China. We should be looking at states that are flying. Look at Brazil, look at states that are flying. We need to stop local optimization and start looking locally. No, we need to start looking at international, fast-growing countries and start benchmarking against them and looking at outcomes. So outcomes that can drive productivity, educational attainment. It's not just about, we built X number of schools, healthcare quality, deployment of capital, the ease of doing business, the metrics that determine that these businesses can do well, or these projects that we're trying to put in place can do well. So I just wanted to bring those to the fore, because otherwise we'd be putting the cart before the horse. The investor who's going to help us to drive this productivity with their capital, they're not going to do it for free, but they have to make money from it. So those factors have to be controlled. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you a lot, Dr. Femi, for that insightful thoughts about driving capital and how to create a good ease of doing business to be able to attract a lot of investment. Thank you a lot for that. And let me also read some of the comments before we move ahead. We have from, I think, Dr. Abdul Fatai Adedeji said, just like the speaker said, that it would be good if Dawn Commission can help develop framework for all stakeholders both from academia, civil society, private sector, government, etc., to contribute to regional development, like a public-private partnership. Thank you for that. And Godwill also said the Southwest region is blessed with many research institutes. The Dawn Commission should also harvest their existence for better productivity within the region. And Femi Bolaji said the current situation in Nigeria points to greater likelihood of capital flight rather than investment. So these are your thoughts. So kindly share your thoughts. I want to see if Professor Olufemi Saibu, please, are you online? Can you unmute?
I'm online.
All right, sir. Please go ahead.
Yes, I want to thank the DG, John, and all the teams there for these initiatives to bring all of us together to see how we can create awareness and then begin to see things that we have to work together to get Nigeria better. And there's no way Nigeria can be better without the region being better as well. So I also want to appreciate my president for really speaking our minds in terms of how the government in Nigeria invest heavily on human resources and abandon them there and begin now to source for the same thing elsewhere, cheaper value at higher cost. It's always be our worries that why will government pay salaries, provide resources for some people to be in universities, to be in higher institutions, and the same thing they are being paid for or they are asked to work, they will see again outsourcing outside. And those that are outsourcing to come back to even the same people that are rejected by Nigerians to do the work for them. And that's where I think Dawn also can come in to tap on the resources. You cannot have higher productivities without at least utilizing your cheapest resources that have the highest values. So I also want to join in that perspectives that Dawn can use this platform to bring together a framework, like was suggested by Dr. Adedeji, to create a platform for all these resources that Southwest have, both in academics, in private sectors, to create a platform that we engage regularly and begin to identify areas, and we can track our progress. Whatever we do this year, and then we meet the following year, we see where we are, and then we can build on that. And through that, we'll be able to identify the problems. And also, like I share at the Lagos State Economic Outlook report, we need to create our indices that speak to our local realities. We cannot continue to use the benchmark of even IMF and World Bank to discuss issues of poverty in local Nigeria. I relate with China very well, and I've been there and I've been to their poverty alleviation center. And what they did, they calibrate all those development indices on the basis of local areas. What they consider as poor in Shanghai is different what you have maybe in Yahoo. So we should begin to see what is these development indices, how does this pick the local situation, and then based on that, we can track our progress and begin to measure what it is. And we need a framework, and that's the purpose of the Dawn, to bring all of us together, provide a platform that can harness the government, the private sectors together to be able to drive this purpose. And also, I want to speak to what Mr. Emizio Joe said about the low productivities of university graduates. Sincerely speaking, some of us really believe that's part of the problem we have with some people outside the system. Because you don't engage us, you don't know our values. Because we have that mentality that what we hear in the news, we believe that the majority of graduates from Nigerian universities are bad. And yet, the same set of people are doing great both in private and so. So until we begin to build trust on our own product, we may also believe that everything is not good. And until we engage those products and identify areas where they are deficient and we work together to improve it. So we should not use the area, those little areas where we have challenges to now at least classify everything as bad. I can speak of University of Lagos now in terms of what we are doing in terms of improving the quality, ensuring that we meet up with the demand of the private sectors. But I used to say this, university produce yam, not pounded yam. So we do not produce amala So we produce something that's useful for everybody. Those who need them from the back industries, those who need them from
I think what I, I think we lost Prof. J.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So thank you. So yeah, pros have maybe until he comes back, he has really said a lot. Thank you for Professor Shaibu for the wonderful input. He still emphasized creating a platform whereby we engage regularly so that people can interact, both people in the public sector and the private sector, so that we can be able to forge ahead. The another important point that I also like that Prof said is that creating our own indices, that are indicator, which makes an abstraction from this global indicator, citing the example of China Poverty Alleviation Center, so that we'll be able to track our progress. And also like the point on building trust in our local content, which is really very important, because we export a lot of these brains ahead. Nowadays we talk about brain drain, and so we can't talk about brain drain if we don't if you are not producing anything. So he talked about this building trust. Prof, you are back. Please, you can.
Sorry, it's part of the challenges. The electricity just went off. So what I'm just saying is that unless we engage the universities, we will not know the resourcefulness that are available there and are cheaper and easier, and they are willing. So we need to build that relationship. And also that Dawn is really have to play a strategic role on bringing all of us together. I think we can do more. And I can say universities are ready to work with you. And I can speak of that of University of Lagos. And Nigeria Economic Societies, led by our president, also is ready. And that's why they have been doing all the collaborations. So we should not just make this seminar to just talk alone, and let us put something practical on ground that can bring all of us together and contribute to development of our region and the country as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. I know that when the Nigeria Economic Society visited Dawn Commission, one of the things we discussed was the roundtable, that's economic roundtable, and which is on the way. We shall get into that very soon. Anyway, thank you a lot for your thoughts, Professor. And like I said, you can give your thoughts on how to increase long-term productivity in Southwest region. And if I may read one of the comments, someone said, I think Joel Owuru said, just like the panelists said, intra-regional cooperation is very important. There need to be competitive growth effort of each state should be avoided. The growth effort should be complementary. That if perhaps Nigeria returns to regionalism, intra-regional complementary growth is also essential. They also reiterated the intra-regional value chain creation is very important. So thank you, Dr. Joy, for that. I want to call on Mr. Sumba. I don't know if he's still around. Mr. Ade Sumba. Mr. Sumba, please.
Yes, I'm still around.
Please, you can speak now. You can go ahead, please.
Okay. I want to appreciate those who have the two profs, and of course all the scholars that have also contributed. Is a worthy initiative. My own concern, based on my own background, is just the political will. We are very good at formulating policy in this country, and We are not poor at that at all. We have so many economic blueprints right from inception, which the past leaders have put in place. Even during the military era, we have all these things in place. But the political will to do them has always been the problem. Down Commission is dealing with a group of governors who would not put money in what they will not benefit from. And that is the main reason why they've not been that synergy that one of the speakers mentioned, which can really enhance development of the region. For instance, I read an article of recent which talked about using the old Cape Gauge, the rail line that moved from Ibadan to Ilorin axis, to move agricultural produce. At least if you can move it from those areas down to Lagos, it connects Osogbo, it connects Iwo, it connects some other hinterland. If you are not thinking of building a new one, why can't you use that one to move good items? Then how much of agricultural activity is really going on? We have most of these things in theory, despite all the research institutes that we have in the region, especially here in Ibadan. So you see them not being interested in actually developing, especially, and they are the ones to provide the funding required to put all these infrastructures in place. One of the speakers mentioned the fact that we do not need to increase the number of farmers. I agree with him quite well, but to improve the technology. We don't have up to, I don't think the United States have up to 2,000 farmers, but yes, they feed themselves, and what they waste alone in a day is enough to feed another country. So how much mechanized farm do we have within the region? Even those that exist, like semi-mechanized, they cultivate raw materials majorly for exports and to enrich their private pockets, not to really improve on the value chain of agriculture. So all these are the main issue that we are facing. And until we begin to take things seriously, I know Down Commission is doing a lot, and the credit is always there. But you are dealing with a group of leadership that are not willing, if I may use that word, to really do something serious about developing the region. Lagos is giving them a blueprint. Fine. But how much of this blueprint are they copying? For instance, with the launch of the Blue Rail that was launched in Lagos, I expect the state governments here in Oyo to look for investors that can build a rail line that will connect Shaki to Ibadan, for instance, or even connect Shaki through Ogun State back to Lagos. So when you don't see that kind of connectivity, there is no way that we will not be having these challenges. And we operate a system where the political determines virtually everything. And when they don't create an enabling environment, it will be very difficult for the private sector fund that they are actually seeking to get to be attracted into the country. So all these are what have been my concern, and I've been listening to all those who have been speaking. We're all speaking the same thing. We have brilliant people. Professor Shaibu just mentioned the fact that the government do not engage local intellectuals directly. And when they do, they just put them at that advisory capacity. They are not really given the power to implement fully what they have given to them. And these are challenges. So what do we do? How can Down Commission now navigate their way around this leadership to get them to play ball or to do things in the right way, or to really get the needed political will required to be able to advance all these things that we've been talking about? Because without it, we just come here today, tomorrow, another time, speak English, come up with brilliant ideas, come up with a policy document, a communique or a report, present to them, they look at it, it doesn't suit their interest, they keep somewhere and allow it to gather dust. So that has been my own concern, and that's the bane of Nigerian development. And until something seriously is done about this, I still have my reservations. So that's what I will say for now.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Sumbo, and I appreciate you. Yes, I would like to call Dr. Shade Taiwo. Please, Doctor, you can speak now.
Yes, thank you. Well done to everybody. I was going to raise a point about the gap between the academia and government. Unfortunately, Professor Adeniki doesn't seem to be online anymore. I was going to say, if government doesn't go to academia, I think there's a place for academia to also approach government in a way that can be convincing. There is what you call evidence-based advocacy. Can, for instance, the Nigerian Economic Society form regional groups that can engage in comparative analysis at each regional level and share their results or their research outputs with governments in a way that will be convincing to governments that there is a problem somewhere that we need to address, or there's something you are doing well that we need to improve upon on all that. There's something called killer facts. Can academia provide killer facts to government that will convince them about the need to work together on issues that affect the people, I mean, the economy and the society? So maybe later on when I meet Prof, I can also suggest it to him, since I'm also a member of the Nigerian Economic Society. I recall that during the needs framework, I don't know whether some of you remember needs, I took part in an exercise which was called seeds benchmarking. We had a framework and we were schooled to go to the field and not engage with governments in a way that they will compromise the standard of our research outputs. And we did a good job. And governments, I saw that time that government was hustling, struggling to meet the standards. And by wanting to meet the standard and perform well along the scale that was developed, it now made many governments to change certain structures or certain systems which endured for some time. So we need to use facts to ginger government up and make them to be competitive. When states see that they need to compete to get results, then that could be an incentive. About the question of incentivizing the system in terms of wages and payments and all that, I think we're going to have a long way to go along this, because it is obvious that the structure of wages, especially at the higher level, cannot sustain anti-corruption moves. Officers are on their tables signing billions for contractors and private sector operators. And you think with their standard of living and cost of living in, for instance, Abuja, they will not want to dip their hands in the pockets of the government, I mean, in the budgets? Then we're just pretending and joking. So we still have to find a way of sitting down and deliberating on the ways to encourage government officials and give them comfortable life, so that they will not have to dip their hands, because people can't afford houses, they can't afford cars, they can't retire and feel that they are comfortable. So that is one of the reasons why we have corruption. And when we're talking about efficiency, at least government is supposed to facilitate development, while we on ground are the ones that we should act. but the facilitators are busy, looking for funds to steal. I'm currently involved in a program. It's called Super Skills Up of artisans project. I was so excited. I said, good. Government wants to encourage young people to learn skills and, get themselves engaged. So we enthusiastically took in the students that they gave us to teach, and we really trained them very well, practicals, excursions, and all that. Up till today, no MOU. We just did it, because we felt a need to contribute to the society. We don't have an MOU. The students don't have an MOU. We don't know when our money will be paid back because we spent a lot of money doing practicals and all that. And they keep promising us. Then the day this program was supposed to finish, the implementing agency announced to us that the zonal chairman has been posted to the headquarters. The training officer has been posted to Plateau or Niger State. And the officer in charge has been redeployed. So there's nobody to contact anymore about the program. So we don't know whether they will pay. We don't know whether they will help the students. They will tool them. So it's just like they're just doing these programs. They to say that they are they're doing what they're supposed to do. But in practical terms, many of these palliative, many of the programs that the government is setting up to help young people and the MSMEs, I'm sorry, many of them are on paper. At least I'm not speculating this time. I'm involved. And I have seen a video of the DG of the agency involved saying that it had been a successful program. So that means they finished already. And we are the participants. We can't see anything that they're doing. Up till now, we don't have an MOU. So when we are talking about efficiency, a lot has to be done at the government level. Lastly, I want to be a slight devil's advocate for Dawn. Dawn has attempted to prepare a framework for agricultural transformation, and part of the efforts in this area is to ensure that states are tied together somehow to be focused on supplying, on filling these value chain gaps. For instance, Lagos State has a rice mill. Other states that are producing rice have been mandated to produce an amount of metric tons to supply the mill in Lagos. I think things like these are what we need to really link both the rural and the urban areas, formal and informal sectors, but without government strategic interest in these kinds of activities, and also linking them to programs that look like them at the federal level, and we're just working in silos and nothing much, I'm sorry, can be achieved. For instance, the SAPZ is on in so many states, but states are just treating those programs as hanging programs, and they're on their own. They are not mainstreaming. They are not integrating programs along, different ministries and all that. So that is, in a nutshell, what I have to say. Thank you. It's been fun being here.
Thank you so much, Ma, Doctor. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. DG, sir, please, you can go ahead now.
Thank you. Actually, part of what I wanted to comment on, Dr. Shade Taiwo has done that. But I also, in responding to, trying to say, okay, Mr. Badejoko Adesumbo. You see, part of the challenges, it's, and as you rightly said, it's not for lack of ideas or lack of framework from institutions like Dawn Commission, NISA, or several research institutes that we have in the country. But I've said that we must also ensure that those who are meant to be drivers of whatever we, when I'm saying we, I'm not referring to Dawn Commission per se, but generally the research and think tanks, that whatever comes out of these institutions, the quality of the drivers matters a lot. Because if you bring in all the eggheads and you craft all these policies, you know this will work if properly implemented. But if continuously we don't also, and I'm being guarded with my words, if we don't also pay attention to drivers or implementers of whatever we come up with, we'll continue to struggle. And I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say here. We continue to struggle because you can't give what you don't have. We have seen states in this country where, because of competent drivers, it is infiltrating. Whatever they're doing is being directly felt by the populace. But if you sit down and you craft everything and you submit, and at times even those who surround the drivers, they see whatever you want to do as a threat, or at times we only look at it from the political prism, as in PRISM, then it becomes a struggle. So at times some will say, oh, Dawn Commission, what are you doing? Why are our governors not doing this? And you will say, look, Dawn is a think tank. We are excited now that SWDC, Southwest Development Commission, is coming on board. We have started interaction with our governors, and we are saying that, look, quite a lot of things that have been presented that we believe can drive growth in this region. We are hoping that once SWDC starts, and they have the funds, they will be guided by the templates of development that we have here, which Dawn has put in place. So we are not expecting, as an example, an SWDC to come to start and then be digging boreholes in Ikperido or be constructing classrooms in Ilaro. We are going to insist that, look, as an example, we have a template, we have a design for regional rail. And I'm glad you mentioned the old rail lines. It was part of the recommendations of the experts that we put together who came up with the rail route for Southwest Nigeria. They said that, yes, we're going to also construct some new rail lines, but there are quite a few moribund rail lines that can be resuscitated so quickly that will, in the initial instance, facilitate agricultural growth, as an example. So we are hopeful that some of the things that have been latent, I mean, we have a policy on regional power, as an example. Some of these things just need some concerted efforts from our states. And I'm glad that with the Regional Development Commission, they will have no choice unless they wanted to go down the road of NDDC. Our governors for now are saying that, look, we will approach Regional Development Commission from the Southwest one as one block, BLOC. We're going to be pushing region-wide projects to them. So hopefully, some of the things that has been developed from here over the years, we start seeing the light of the day. You see, I say this all the time, that there's something called audacity of thought. And I like, of recent, I keep using Cocoa House as an example. Cocoa House construction was started in 1956 and completed 7 years later, 64. It took about 7 years to construct, we were told. And I asked if Cocoa House was started in 56, it meant that around 1953, 54, some people had already sat down to conceptualize it because they didn't start construction the day. So it took about 2 years. Now, 53 to 2000 to 2024 is 71 years ago. It meant that some people 71 years ago in Western Nigeria had the audacity of thought to say, let us have a 25-story building. It is that audacity of thought that we will need to resuscitate in Southwest, of course in Nigeria, but I'm particular about Southwest, that we need to resuscitate in Southwest. In 2024, we shouldn't be talking about how imperative it is for us to have rail. Because, again, we were told that the action group in 1953 set up a committee headed by the late Michael Adekunle Ajashin. The committee was to look at rail, on how to build rail for Western Nigeria. Again, that was 71 years ago. If you're talking of fast-tracking development, what better way for someone who lives in, let me again use Ikperindo, somebody who lives there and can catch a train in the morning and travel down to somewhere in Ibadan to work, finishes the day, gets back on the train, and goes back to Ikperindo. What you are doing there is that the money he earns in Ibadan, he spends in Ikperindo, you are spreading development. The man that lives in Ife can easily commute to Lagos. At the end of the day, he gets back to Ife. You are removing poverty in Ife. It isn't rocket science because some societies have done, they've been doing this for close to 200 years. Close to 200 years. As the first underground station in UK, from Farringdon to Barbican, it's close to 170 years old. And they're still building. The Elizabeth line was only commissioned about 3 years ago. They keep expanding. So if we have the audacity of thoughts, a lot of the things that we've discussed here, a lot of the things that are on templates, you won't need to speak too much to Renchi to convince them that, look, this is the way forward. But I will close on this. One thing we must never submit to, we mustn't get tired of talking. We mustn't get tired. Some will say, oh, you always talk, you always meet. Please, we mustn't get tired of forums like this. Again, Yorubas will say, Kokoko larofa diti. We must keep talking, hoping that one day, one of the things that we've been saying will come to pass. When Amotekun started 5 years ago, 5 years in February, people thought the idea itself started in 2020 or whatever, 2019. But at Dawn Commission, as early as 2014, at a meeting in Lagos, we already recommended, let's have a regional security outfit. That was 2014. But nothing happened until 2019. So what I'm just saying is, we won't get tired. We're excited at all these contributions, but despondency must never be in our dictionary. The day we do that, we've lost our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. DG, thank you for the beautiful response. Yeah, because of our time, I would like the panelists to give their closing thoughts on today. So let me start with Dr. Olusegun Mishakin. Please, your closing remark. Dr. Mishakin.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think a lot has been said. Very, very insightful and interesting. I think the last point I will make is, I made it before, I think we should continue to see how we can scale a conversation like this at the region. We should continue to create a platform to bring more people in, to make it a champion platform that will be an example, not just within the country, but also in the continent. And I think we can do it. I think that's the only concluding part that we want to add. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Misaki. We appreciate you. Yes, Mrs. Olayinka Ojo, please, your closing remark.
Thank you very much. So for me, I've also documented a lot from different speakers. You know, I would like to reiterate the fact that many speakers this morning has referred to investment and strengthening of research and development. They've referred to building think tank, building capacity of drivers, building capacity of the public service across the states of the region to ensure that you can have drivers who are able to take forward all the strategies and initiatives that you may want to introduce. It is very important. I know that Lagos may be ahead, but that is not without intentional investments, like I have shared. We have leveraged a lot of collaboration with knowledge bodies across the institute and institutions of research to strengthen our workforce. And I tell you, we have in-house consultants that work with us. That is not to say that we are there yet. We have also seen different gaps. We have seen how to better strengthen our portfolio here in Lagos. But for Dawn Commission, one final word that I would like to say again is that you may want to take the Lagos experience. We have products that are evidence to that beyond paperwork, translation of our research paperwork into visible output out there in the streets of Lagos. Like my governor, we always say that Beri Shewa, Beri Shewa, Ewuburu, So I would like to say that it would be good for Dawn Commission to take the sample from here to scale. You never can tell. When we think that we have arrived as a knowledge giant, like my head of service will always say to us that we should not think that we have gotten there, By the time you are scaling using Lagos as a sample to scale in other Southwest states, we might find gaps in Lagos that we also need to draw lesson and knowledge from. There are evolving knowledge all over the place. So this commission will be depending on you to see how your integration of the Southwest public service strengths helps to drive the kind of developments and productivity that we look forward to see in the region. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be on this platform this morning. I thank every speaker. I have also privately reached out to some of the speakers here this morning to see how they will be also value-added points for us at our upcoming economic discussion later in the year. Thank you so much for this platform. I want to thank Dawn Commission for this privilege and everyone that has spoken and participated. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Mrs. Olayinka Ojo. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to call on Mr. Teslim Shitabe for his closing remark.
I want to thank Dawn Commission for the opportunity to have this conversation this morning. I want to take off from the point of the DG, and I like his expression, the audacity, not of hope, as Obama said, but the audacity to think and to act. An American Army general once said that hope is not a method. In Prussia, we agree with that. It's good to hope, but we need to go beyond hope. We need to act. And that's what I think many of the speakers have said today. We need to take action. And I want to point out something here. I refer to a book by Professor Yuan Ang. China is not perfect. India is not perfect, but it works. The two countries work. And then I need to say something also. Not every area of China is an example of progress. Not every area of India is an example of progress. There are problems in different areas. In China, the growth comes basically from Guangzhou and Shanxi. And then in India, maybe the southern parts of India and the blue parts of India, that's where you see progress. But what I'm trying to say here is that it doesn't mean that we can't lift ourselves up from where we are. We must have the audacity, the courage, the fearlessness to go forward. We have to live for our children and their children, a society that has hope in action. Not hope in itself, but the hope that we will take right actions to improve ourselves. I've heard somebody talk about macroeconomic factors, and that is a very valid point. But there's a book that person said that. I'd like him to read a book, The Obstacle is the Way, by Ryan Holiday. No obstacle can stop you from achieving what you want to achieve if you're determined to achieve it. We can achieve, regardless of what the macroeconomic obstacles are saying. People are investing in Lebanon. People are investing in Afghanistan. People are investing in war-torn areas that you won't imagine. It's about how creative, how courageous you are, how innovative you are, the audacity to innovate, the audacity to have a concerted plan that everybody commits to. And I like what the DG said. It's not going to happen overnight. There's a book called The Compound Effect. Nothing happens overnight, but it will happen. So the courage to take those first steps that will make it happen is what we're doing here today. So I want to thank Dawn Commission for giving us that opportunity. You should not get tired. You should see it as a service of sacrifice for the greater good, not only of the present, but also of future generations. Thank you very much for having me here. I want to thank fellow speakers, and I also want to thank those who have made comments. The comments have been very insightful. And as personally and as ProShare, we'll go back and look at some of those comments and see whether we can provide some answers where we can circumnavigate those challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, Mr. Teslim Shitabe. And we can see that the panelists have given their final thoughts on this. But before we go finally, the next step is, the next item is resolution, next step, and action points. And to do that, I will call on my colleague, Mr. Abiodun Abioye, to do that. Mr. Abiodun, please, you have the floor.
Well done, everyone. And the discussion has been quite insightful and engaging. I really appreciate giving the platform to give these action points. So I will start from the key issues that were discussed randomly. We have issues on productivity challenges in Southwest Nigeria. And like the DG opened the floor to express how productivity is not just beyond, just not something within the simple salary increase, but there are other issues that are revolving around this particular discourse. So, and Professor Ade Nikiju now expanded on it and talked about the economic shocks that is affecting Nigerian fragile economy, and he notes that sustainable growth is impossible with current low productivity. And more emphasizing on this is Mr. Shitabe's perspective that productivity transcends the traditional factors of productions, but there must be a focus on value creations through technological innovations. So one of those issues that also resonates around these discourses is the open capital development, which Professor Adini Kiju drew compelling parallels between the educational investment and national development. He used China's STEM education sources as a benchmark. And Mrs. Olankauju, from a public sector and practical insight from state experience, described the successful civil service training programs that transform Lagos State's public sector's capability. And yet again, Mr. Shitabe also take us back to the memory lane and citing Chief Obafemi Awolowo's free education legacy and how it has enhanced human capital development and has put so many Southwest technocrats and experts in as leaders in various fields today. So emphasizing the fact that there is a need for there's a need for investment in human capital development, and the areas at which this human capital development should thrive is more of the technology, like technological adoption. When Mrs. Olanka Uju from Lagos State shows how Lagos State has it has come about is digitalization efforts, including establishing ICT rooms and more or less phasing out the traditional administrative roles in the Lagos State. So there's an emphasis on the fact that there's a need for technology in value creation, and even using entertainment industry as an example. And Dr. Mishaki stresses technologies as and importance. Like it's very important in attracting investment and driving development. So there's also a need for comprehensive development planning. This is what's also the issues that all the discussants agreed upon. And that planning, Professor Akinju pointed out that the reason SAP failed, which I, of course, more or less, I'm hearing this for the first time, is that it lacked adequate planning. So, and Mrs. Olainka now gave us what is helping Lagos State over time. And it showcased that there is this Lagos State 30 years development plan, which is a model that other states can adopt within the region. So in this sense, they emphasize how proper planning can create an enabling environment for private sector and sustained development. So we also have discourse around state-level economic analysis and performance. So that's Professor Adenikeju highlighted the current limited understanding of state-level economics and called for more focused research. So Dr. Musake stressed the importance of understanding each state's financial capacity and reducing dependency on federal allocations. Dr. Omishakin advocated for stronger internal revenue generations. Then the overall emphasis has been on regional collaborations and integrations, which is something Dawn Commission is known for. So, and noting that the limited economic linkages between states should be something of to be something that we should look into as a commission. And Shita argued persistently that Lagos State development should benefit the entire Southwest region through deliberate integrations efforts. And Mrs. Olainka also emphasized the potential of peer learning and knowledge sharing among states. She also emphasized that during closing remarks, suggesting that Lagos development model could serve as a template for regional growth. So we have the discourse that was concluded with a strong consensus on the need for concrete actions like establishing regional knowledge sharing platforms, developing comprehensive development plan, investing in technology and human capital, creating mechanisms for interstate economic integrations, strengthening academic partnership, and focusing on value creation through technology, also implementing peer review mechanism, revitalizing ideal regional assets like Mr. Shita make reference to the paper factory in Ogun State, and overall creating a framework for state level economic analysis. So it has been a very insightful discussion. And I hope with this, we're able to recap a little bit of what has been discussed so far and the action plans that we look forward ahead to. So thanks so much for having us, for coming to give this so insightful discussion.
Thank you so much, Abiyoye, for that recap and the action steps. And we will also reach out, we'll take step on that and reach out to relevant stakeholders to be able to make sure that some of these recommendations are implemented. So overall, I want to sincerely appreciate everyone, every participant at this development discourse. So on behalf of the Director General of Dawn Commission, Dr. Sheye Oyeleye, I want to thank all the panelists that came, Professor Adeola Adenikiju, the President of Nigeria Economic Society. He had to leave because he had another meeting. So apologies accepted. Thank you for coming, Professor. We appreciate you. Want to also thank Dr. Olusegun Mishaki, the Chief Economist of Nigeria Economic Summit Group, NESG. Thank you for your thoughts. Definitely we'll reach out to continue the conversation. They want to also thank Mr. Teslim Shitabe, the Chief Economist and the Managing Editor of ProShare Limited Nigeria. Thank you. Every time we engage with you, we see passion, we see action. And of course, we met this year again, and we definitely will also continue the conversation on some of the areas we have already identified, so that from the private sector perspective, be able to strengthen public governance and discussions in the state and in the region. So I want to also thank Mrs. Olayinka Ojo, the Director of Lagos State Economic Intelligence Department. Thank you, Madam. Giving the public sector perspective to this conversation really made you rich. And it's not just the perspective, you're giving us example of Lagos State has done. And we believe that with the peer review and peer learning, we really scale up this conversation so that other states in the region can also come up and begin to be competitive across the country. So we want to thank you. Very definitely, we already have existing conversation, which we would like to take forward to see the areas where we'll be able to collaborate and make sure that we work together and affect every other of our states. I have a special apology from Dr. Afolabi Olowokere. He's also one of our panelists, the MD and Chief Economist of ADSR Nigeria Limited. All through this program, he has been airborne. So there's no way he could join us, but he sent his apologies. We know that he was around during our last event. So we want to also thank you for coming. And also, we want to thank every one of us, all the contributors, Mr. Adesumbo Badechoko, Mr. Femi, Dr. Fatai Adedeji, Mr. Joe Oworo, and every other person that has also contributed in one way or the other. We've seen this. We also thank Dr. Oludele Folari, and just seen this. Thank you for joining. We appreciate everyone. Thank you, Professor Oluvemi Saibu. Thank you, everybody that has joined today. We want to appreciate you for joining our development discourse. And like it has been agreed, this is going to be a continuous platform, and we believe to scale it up so that we can really be in the conversation of some national development and also regional development, so that we can also make sure that our policies, our conversation are knowledge-driven, and the stakeholders are also well represented, so that they can also be able to enrich the conversation from every sphere. So I want to thank you, everyone, for coming. Once again, on behalf of the Director General, the management of Dawn Commission, I want to say thank you very much for coming. This program was put together by the Economic Development and Research Department of Dawn Commission. I will continue to engage the everyone so that we can continue to move the state forward. We also thank everybody that has our colleagues that have also joined the media department, and everyone who has contributed. Thank you so much for making the program successful. And until the next time where we come again, we want to say thank you. I remain Adesoji Faraibi. Thank you so much. We appreciate.
Thank you, Andy. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, son.